and they've been good years, may I say.
Love is hard. Willie Boy was a very good hunter because he could run faster than many animals. He was young and strong, so he went across the desert looking for a wife. One day he saw his cousin Carlota and he wanted her. She looked back at him openly and they both ran away together. Family members followed and found them. Willie Boy and Carlota were separated. One night, Willie Boy got a rifle and killed her father. Then he and Carlota ran away again. This time the whites chased them. Willie Boy hid his wife in a wash, gave her his coat and water skin, and went for food. He ran in the old way, for he was like the wind, and no one could catch him then. He came back with food but could not find his wife. He searched everywhere, but she had died. He found the men chasing him and shot their horses with his rifle, so that they would have to run like he did. They could not. He was so much faster that he quickly ran off. He ran further, far out into the desert, away from all his family. None of the people saw him again, and we later heard that he had died.
Once in a while, historians are handed on their plate something that seems to be pretty definable and inarguable. Most of the time, it's shades and complexities and nuances of what people think happened either to themselves or to others. And so it's a dialogue. This constant dialogue of the past and the present about the future involves almost everything.
You're the whitest lakes on earth.
No.
I wonder why it's not locked. There's no crocodiles in there.
They give you eagle powers, Aid.
Careful. Well, it's been a very sacred area. You know, not many people are privileged to even are allowed to come here. It has medicinal purposes. It's just been important to the tribe ever since, you know, before even pre-contact.
Show at night.
Is there really?
This is the big annual party of our club. It's called the Pow Wow. It's the annual member guest.
In the summer of 1909, a member of the oldest American minority, a Paiute Indian named Willie Boy, became the center of an extraordinary historical event. This is what happened in the deserts of California.
get thrown out of this club. You kidding me?
Well, yeah, because we're like 40 years younger than anybody.
Why do you think
Because we're not almost dead. Look at the old hot chicks.
What's beautiful at night back here, you can take your golf cart around for a little evening drive, or you can go to the cove here and have a little dinner or a drink. But along the way, you can go along these canyons that are all lit up by the homeowners and the homeowner associations here. And it makes for a beautiful, almost old Western desert painting back here from years ago. It's like a Western scene almost.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want, but I'll give them a guaranteed $1,200 buyout or trade value.
Competition, I don't even want to call it competition, but the other stores that might be selling golf cars, we're an exclusive dealer. We're an exclusive of Club Car and Western. So nobody else can touch those two types of golf cars here in the valley. I won't mention any names, but there's 3 other types of golf cars that are made. They are Chinese made. One comes from Japan and one actually comes from India. And they're problem cars.
We're not exempt, like everyone thinks we're exempt from all taxes, but there's certain taxes that California can't charge us. Yeah. So it kind of makes up for that. Getting custom plates, paying that extra fee, we still end up paying them extra money, but
you had to be a very, very skillful person to live in the desert with nothing. I mean, just no cans, anything, just bows and arrows and whatever you had. And they understood the desert finally like white people don't understand it. I mean, they didn't dominate it, they lived through it. And I had a great respect for the Indians. I wasn't like them, but I met them. Unfortunately, our modern life, those people are mostly gone. I met 1 or 2. I met a man by the name of Running Bear who had been born in a teepee in a reservation. And he went on to be a Marine in World War II. And he told me he killed 2 Chinese soldiers with his bare hands in Korea. And I met this man. I mean, I get very involved in history. Every place I move somewhere, I like to know what happened, you know, because I know I'm not the first person there. I didn't know much about Native Americans. I can't say that I know a lot about it now, but their beliefs are very, very different than ours. Like property. They find that very funny. How can you own the mountain? And I have a picture in the play, they all start laughing when they say, well, I own this or I own that. And he said, well, do you own the sky? Do you own the mountain? Then why can't you stop the rain if you own it? So they find this extremely amusing. And if you think about it, I'm beginning to find it fairly amusing too. It was attractive to me for several reasons. It was the death of a generation. It was the end of the America that we all supposedly love and destroy.
Well, we're sitting right around Indian Wells. You're looking to the south over there is the little backdrop of the Santa Rosa Mountains, and you've got an entire valley here. It's called the Coachella Valley, and it obviously filled in over the eons with a lot of sand and gravel and whatever, and then over time that filled up with water. And so although we have a desert and we don't have much rainfall, I think there was one time we went for almost a couple years here, never even had a drop. There's still a lot of water down in the underground. And to give you a little idea of what the size of that is, if you went over to the Boulder Dam and Lake Mead, which is behind it, the capacity of that dam full is like 28 million acre feet. So there's 12 million more acre feet underground here than there would be over behind a full Boulder Dam.
They don't even know how big it actually is. It's that big. No, because I've seen the layout of it and stuff, and they don't know. It could be up to 2 miles deep and over 1.5 miles wide. That sits basically under about 80% of it sits on the reservation.
Which reservation?
Ours, yes, Kauai.
Electronic surveillance. Vigilancia electronica. So it's a perimeter beam here. If anyone crosses this, it'll go off, and the people in the guard shack up there will come down and inquire as to what you're doing, where you're going, what your purpose is, your mission. So you can't cross this, and there's another one yonder down as well. And this is for this part, but the rest is a wall, and then the mountains that are a natural barrier to getting in to that community, and you'd have to be Geronimo to cross those at night and get in.
I knew it was coming. I mean, it was not unexpected. His lifestyle was such, you know. And I was his confidant, the only one he had left here on the desert, because Mary and Letta and a few others had died. And when he explained to me that he fears for his life, you know, I said, you know what you gotta do? It's really simple. I said, you go to Buenos Aires, where you loved it, where you can live in the grandest of styles, in a gorgeous apartment with a cook and a maid and a butler and anything you want. Eat the finest steaks and start a new life. I said, sell the house here, go away. They won't go to Buenos Aires, the people who are after you, you know. And he said, he told me he feared for his life, and of course it happened. You know, he was flaunting his wealth, golden Bulgari necklaces, and he was just asking for trouble. The people involved, some of them were actually lawyers, and one was an antiquity dealer in San Francisco. Oh, it was a total operation. They sent one boy down that he had picked up in the internet, I think. And with him and the others, they plotted how they were going to take his house away, and how we were going to get all the money, and how they were going to get rich. I don't know whether they planned the murder then, but whether they just tried to, I don't know how the whole thing worked. Yeah, it's very sad, you know, because he walked into the house and saw them all inside the house and said, "What are you all doing in here?" you know, and that's when he got killed.
They put me in a cell for 30 days. A little place no bigger than a coyote cave. Day and night I thought of these mountains here. And you.
It's funny how God works. Where your problem is, He's going to put you right in the middle of it. And I won't go into that personal situation with me, but I look at that as being the second worst thing that can happen to a father and a parent. And that hatred for me in wanting to kill, you know, the individuals was so powerful. And when you grow up on the streets, if you don't handle your business and your family is hurt, what kind of a man are you? You aren't a man. You are of no value if you're not going to take care of, you know, bad situations that happen to your family. So I was killing myself inside and hurting with the pain inside. And it was the farthest thing from my mind to care about a prisoner, because I would be the first one to push the button and fry him.
Not uncommon at all to find dead bodies out here. Unfortunately, there's never a shortage. There's sometimes multiple dead bodies.
Where would you find them?
Many times, commonly inside orchards, groves just like this. Very easy access to the road, as you can see here. They're not set back more than 30, 40 feet. They're very dark, obviously no lighting, very secluded. You know, it's really hot. It gets over 100 plus here for 3 months out of the year. It causes bodies sometimes to expand, the smell to carry even more. And with the wind and you know, blowing from south to the north here, sometimes it helps. The heat actually helps sometimes in finding a body.
You can't think that you're gonna die, but you always gotta be prepared for what's gonna happen. In life as well. You can't just go into life blindly. You gotta be prepared. You gotta have a plan. I mean, some people, they live their life without a plan. I mean, I have nothing against that. But I just personally like to live knowing what my next move is. First time I thought I saw death, I thought I'd be scared. Made me feel scared, but not so scared that I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't just, oh, I'm never playing polo again. What if that happens to me? Made me scared, like, what would my life be like if I died? What would it be like? You know, what would people say? What would be my life?
Remember, Willie Boy was only 25. He was the lead of the play, but we don't really know exactly who he was. I had him as two people. I had him as how he is seen by the yellow press and how the Indians described him. Firstly, he is dressed as an Apache Indian with war paint and a rifle, screaming and calling her a bitch and saying, you know, if you don't spread your legs, I'll shove a knife up there and make another crack. In the other one, he's carrying her through the desert and finally says, you can't go any further. I will leave you here, take my coat, and I love you, I will come back. He lived in the desert. He was a Paiute Indian. He was the last of the runners, and he knew how to survive in the desert much more than the people who were chasing him. And they were pretty good. But they had food and water, and he had nothing. But he was he'd been working with cattle, so he knew where there was food stashed. These guys would stash food in case they had trouble. So he would go places where he knew there was water. And he understood the desert. I mean, he would eat, you know, when you live in the desert, there are certain things that you eat or have water and certain things that not, like that you wouldn't want to touch. That would be very difficult. These holes would have little animals in them. Maybe you would eat that. It's pretty rough stuff.
The songs were extremely important to the runners because they were particular, because they were trail guides, and in addition to water and shelter, they also indicated where you could find edible grasses. And it's very important to remember that people ate grasses until European flora, you know, exterminated them. But in the deserts, that spread, that introduction came very, very late. So that people were still able to eat grasses and get nourishment from that. And that's part of what is contained in the song, and why the songs had to be memorized carefully, and they had to be, the trails had to be run several times. You had to understand them and where to go with them. So it's a highly practical way to survive and a very efficient way to get information across.
And it's totally opposite of our cultural understanding, which is one of the challenges we had, was trying to merge the history with the cultural traditions of which we were not a part.
You want to run back? Well, run! Go on, run! The road leads right to him! Tell him Willie Boy is here!
Uncle Bill was in the movie with his brothers, a sister, and his mother, and they were actually playing a game that we have played here in Kauai and this community surrounding. It's called Pion, and they just asked them. They saw them at a fiesta, which is in the movie. That's what it's called, a fiesta, and they had them actually playing in the movie. And at the time, you know, it was a big thing, especially in the community, because there really was nothing, like I said, around here. So it was a big thing, you know, for all of our families on all the other reservations to see that they were in the movie, you know, movie stars. So. It's not really any different than today as far as the cultural side of it, you know, how it seems that society, they don't know, you know, a particular group of individuals, whether it be Native Americans or Asians or, you know, whatever. It's just kind of the fear of the unknown, it seems like to me. You know, Willie Boy didn't seem, you know, he seemed like he was a renegade. They tried to portray it that way, but I mean, that was just life, you know, cattle rustling and things of that nature, and not wanting to be controlled by, you know, an outside entity that is foreign, you know, telling you that what you were brought up to believe and what you were brought up to know wasn't the right thing. It was, you know, by religious persecution, by the law, by whomever, you know, I think, and it doesn't, it's not any different nowadays, you know, it's just in a little bit different form.
Sinatra had 5 guys go after me one night. There was a thing at the Fontainebleau Hotel. And I tell a joke. I said, Frank Sinatra saved my life in 1967. 5 guys were beating me up, and I heard Frank say, that's enough. Mickey Rooney lived with my ex-wife for 10 years. I used to say a joke. I said, Mickey Rooney, I says, I always, when I saw him in movies, I always wanted to do what he did, and then I found out he was doing what I did, you know.
Would you please welcome Shecky Green? Yeah. Church tonight, $20 for the church. I said, every time you light a candle,
What a boring song. There was a guy here that Rites, and he knocked me like I have never been knocked in show business. He talked about me being a drunk in Vegas, said I was thrown out of Vegas, which is not true. Because I happened to do the things in Vegas. I built St. Jude's Ranch for underprivileged children. I helped build a university. One of the first of 6 people built a university. St. Guardian Church, you know. So this guy wrote horrible, horrible things. Which it's not over between he and I, because he's going to die. He is going to die. I see him once in a while and he runs.
If it's 120, you know, you might not want to go out and do that. But 110, 105, you can do it. A little light run walk across the street, a little stretch and lift, a little swim. Or I run the other direction here, on the fairways in the evening. Not a long one. Kind of a run walk, you mix it up. Have a good sweat. You can jump in the pool and then cool off for a while. But mainly in the heat, you don't go out after maybe 11:30 or 12 till about 4 or 5, 6. You sleep like a baby out here. It's quiet, it's safe, peaceful, and stress-free. When everything's kind of going right, you've had a good week or a good month and you're kind of lucky, you'll get a flying dream. Usually I'm running on a field. It's usually my grandmother's old field. She had a big grass field. And I'm usually running, and then I kind of start flying with my arms even, and you kind of fly in bursts.
So I'm sitting in this chair next to my husband in the car, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I said, Jack, I don't believe it. I'm seeing about 12 Arabs, blue people, behind the car, dashing with their swords out towards us. This cannot be good. And he said, well, it certainly isn't good. They were just driving the French out of Morocco, and this was 1954. And they hated the French, and they were very cruel. They did all sorts of awful things, like in the wars happened. And I said, what are we going to do? And he said, well, I don't know what we're going to do. And again, I remembered I spoke a little Arabic. And I said to my husband, you stop the car. I jump out, and it's either or. And I start yelling at the loudest voice I could in Arabic, not in French or English or anything. I said, we are your friends, and we love you. We are Americans. We are not French, and we salute you. My God, the swords came down. On camels, not horseback. They were on camels, the Arabs, the blue people. Yeah.
Gaining on you.
Well, absolutely. There was no one else. It was the Sahara.
We're going to have a wonderful French meal. We're going to have le boeuf à la crème avec les légumes, which is beef with cream
and beans.
Okay, and beans.
I heard legume.
So he opens the refrigerator, takes out a pint of sour cream, a deli pack of roast beef, dumps it in a stir pan with beans and stirs it. Then he has like a relic collection of wine bottles, like a third full, half full, like 20 or 30 of them. Can I pour you a glass of wine?
That's screwed
And then
up.
he gets this like antique wine and gives it to me. Then he creates a spreadsheet and shows me how he saved like, I don't know, couple $1,000s by not buying a new car for 23 years.
Are you kidding
And did an
me?
Excel spreadsheet about how many dollars. I mean, it was like.
Cal was an engineer?
Oh, gosh.
God, he had
I
to been an
think he had a
engineer.
PhD in.
Yeah.
And you know how a lot of people, you bite into a mango and it's kind of stringy,
Right.
and you know how the seed's really thick, okay?
Mhm.
These guys have developed a mango through genetic engineering that's like cutting into a perfect peach, no string, small seed. It's a nice sized fruit, and they're growing right here in the Coachella Valley.
No kidding. Good environment here for them.
So what happens here is, because like right here we're probably at about 14 feet below sea level, and you know how hot air rises and cold air. So the perfect place in the desert to grow mangoes is between 60 feet and 90 feet. So down along the Vista Santa Rosa, as they go down towards Oasis, these guys have bought all the land between 60 feet and sea level.
I didn't have any particular background for water or water law or anything else. I was a tax lawyer and ended up with a water case from the same client up in the Central Valley of California, the San Joaquin Valley. And that's a tremendous farming area. And I ended up with a case that involved where they would get to use the water and on how much land they would get to use it. And it was a conflict between what was known as reclamation law, and on the other hand, the normal law, which involved water rights that were already established and utilized by the various farmers, etc. They try not to even think about it or publicize it or talk about it, because what they want to do is sort of keep their money in the bank. It's sort of their insurance policy. And they do everything they can to try to recharge the aquifer and use as little as possible, but it would be, I'm sure, many hundreds of years.
Yes.
Now we have everything. Your father's gun. And my father's dog shirt. They're here. Go up high. Go up high.
Who worries about a house that's in security, security guards, gates, security guards cruising the neighborhood? You don't worry about somebody breaking into your home. I get a call from my landscaper one morning and says, I think somebody tried to break into your house. These people weren't in my house for an hour. They were in here for hours and hours and hours. Bottle caps were in my closet, my bedroom, on the floor. You know what they took? They took all my white socks. They took the shampoos out of my shower. They cleaned out everything under the cabinet in the bathroom. My toilet paper, the toilet paper basket. They took my ironing board cover. I have a wine collection that's probably worth $3,000. They didn't touch a bottle of wine. They didn't take my computers, my TV, anything.
Willie, are you going to kill them?
If I have to.
What do you mean if you have to?
I mean if they keep coming.
But they're white, Willie. They'll chase you forever.
How long is that? Less than you think.
It's crazy, Willie. You can't win. You can't beat them. Never.
Maybe. But don't know I was here.
I happen to have my radio on, and I'm monitoring the channel, and I hear what is put out as an 1199 officer down. The deputy was shot in the back, and he was shot by a high-powered rifle that went through the back of his chest, through his plate, through his protective vest, and put him down immediately. And even with that, he was still able to transit. He needed help. The suspect took off running. We had a pretty good sense of what direction he went in. So this is, you know, right now we're starting a manhunt. Within the first 2 weeks, we had probably brought in about 300 to 400 deputies, law enforcement officers to assist with the search. I mean, this was the #1 lead story, just like manhunts are in our valley here. So we brought in hundreds. And you imagine this is going 24/7. You have to feed these individuals, you have to keep them hydrated. There's a lot of, you know, animal activity out here, and there's snakes, rattlers. It's very difficult, very unsafe. You have shrubbery, tumbleweeds, just like this. I mean, you can't just walk blindly into the desert trying to look for this guy with a flashlight, because you're lighting yourself up, making yourself a target, and you don't know what's very easy to hide behind a bush like this and be ambushed. And clearly has no problem doing that. I hear some rustling through the bushes, and I'm pretty much there alone at this time. And the suspect comes out of the berm. He sees me, I see him, he's carrying his long gun. I have my shotgun trained on him. I'm telling him, put it down, put it down, put it down. And he pretty much ignored me. He thought about, I can see that he was thinking hard about what he wanted to do. The whole thing lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it was, you know, pretty intense. And couple of the first thoughts that came to my mind was how young this guy was. You know, I thought he was 15, turns out he was 17, but it was a kid. I may have to shoot a kid. But within 10 seconds, he decided he was going to make a U-turn and run right back into the brush. And our command made a decision that because of darkness coming in, that they were going to send a tactical team inside to go find him. And they found him, and they ended up getting into a shootout and killing him.
Remember, they would imitate animals. Why? Because they didn't have any other influence like we have. You notice a rabbit does not run. It jumps. Goes ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. Well, that is the Indians would run like that. It was more or less a jump. You know, you'd start to like a run. I think probably skipping would be as close as I could get to it. And I'm putting myself up as an expert on American Indian culture, and I'm not. I'm not really. I mean, I was basically a playwright and an actor, and I knew something about it, and I did as much research as I possibly could and presented it at a theater. It ran for several weeks to full out houses, and it was the most time we had Native Americans ever coming to the theater. So it was quite successful.
On average, a person moves 4 times in their lives. We can't move from here. I mean, we're here. Forever is a long time. I know the world's not gonna last forever, but in the event that it does, you don't know how much water you're going to need. So I know from a travel perspective, that's scary, you know, because people could come and go, but meaning the outside, but we're here. I mean, those of us that wish to remain here, which is a lot, that's the scary part.
Dear Heavenly Father, you know, I just pray that this time has been a time to where, you know, people are going to be able to see you, and, you know, when they're traveling in the Valley of the Bones, that they'll be able to stop and say, hey, you know, I remember that guy talking, and I'm not alone. I don't have to be alone. God, just plant that seed in their mind to pray to you and to ask you for help, and let them know of the relationship that you want to have with them, and, you know, the reason why they are. You know, and those men in prison, dear Heavenly Father, open their hearts to what you have for them and the love that you have. And, you know, I pray for all of their wives and their children that are in a hell of their own. For my other brothers and sisters that, you know, already know you and love you, don't let it be a matter of fear of what's coming on, because we know the end of the story, and you tell us that we win. And, you know, I thank you for that.
The ghost dance was originated by the prophet named Wovoka. He was from Nevada. He preached a message that said that Indians should improve themselves by avoiding mistakes and evil practices of whites, but that there were lots to learn from whites. At the same time, they needed to dance this dance to bring back the old ways, to bring back the old pre-white era in which Indians and animals had a greater communion than they had had once the whites arrived. And so the purpose of the dance was renewal. And once the old ways are brought back, the whites will simply vanish. Bob, what year are these Gucci's?
84. Is there a good year for Gucci?
Yes.
What year?
83, 84. And then 67.
I think we're all right. We can get through.
They leave?
No. We can't outrun horses.
Oh, Pow Wow. Pow Wow's got a long, good, interesting history at the country club. I mean, it's traditionally Indian, but somehow it's morphed in recent years to a cowboy thing, which I think is oddly inappropriate and kind of funny. Guys bring out their cowboy boots, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought this was about the Indians having fun, not the cavalry coming in.
I've been going to this place for 8 weeks, go every week, and you can't get rid of me with a stick, you know, because I'm loving this stuff. Now I'm getting good at it. One woman goes, hey, when you get done with her, would you mind licking my pussy on the floor? And I go, shit, no, get in line. And the next one says, hey, would you do me in the ass when you're done with her? I said, just get in line.
I am a Native American. I was born in the United States, so I'm Native American.
So right behind them, right? Ambulance chasers. I go, you know what? Fucking insurance companies screw people around all the time. They'll fuck you. And I go, and if it wasn't for me taking care of you and getting you what you deserve, you'd get screwed around. I'm actually doing you a blessing. What I do is a good thing. I mean, over and over and over. Yeah, okay. Guy's offered $15,000. We end up getting $500,000 for him. And but he has no money. He's been thrown out of his house. He goes, I need $50,000. I'll just take it. I said, no, I got a guy to loan you money, and then you'll wait until he sells the case. He charges some pretty good interest because there's no collateral. You know, if you lose the case, they lose the money. But God damn it, you know what? Your case is worth a lot of money, and it stays you in the game. Memories. That's what you live with now. Good memories. Don't think of the bad times, think of the good times. And enjoy that you're alive today. Seriously, I dreamed about it, dreaming about pulling out in a golf cart, picking up your buddy, going to the tee, you know, drinking beer, camaraderie, the fun, the parties. I had the best 12 years. The problem, if you want to throw a butt at the end of this, is economy, politics, whatever you want to call housing. Things fall apart, people move, people lose their business, the stock market crashes, everybody's gone.
They're finished. They know they're finished, and they're catching on to the ghost dance. They're catching on to whatever they can, and their last dances to the Great Spirit, which is abandoning them. And when we have the final dance is hey, and then he come to me, Willie, come across over to the land of happiness. We will live forever. We will have many children. You know, what was he doing? He was facing jail. He couldn't get away, and the love of his life had died. And you know, at that age, you're very, very emotional, so he just said, well, why don't I just check out now? That's what I think. I don't know if I would have done that, but You know, that's, you know, if you have a strong belief there's a next life, it's not so hard. If you're an atheist and don't believe in that, like me, then it takes more to do it. But if you sincerely believe that there's another life that you're going to go to, it's not so hard to die.
You know what? I haven't been the greatest guy in this world. And I've created a lot of pain. And thank God I've been forgiven for that. And I will look forward to that time of going before Him. And that judgment is going to be for the things that I've done out of love, not the evil. That's going to be put in the fire. Everything that I've done. The fire is going to be that pure love.
I wish this wind would stop.
Yeah, but then it's going to be 120-degree heat.
I like the heat.
You can have it. I just wonder why God still has me in this hellhole.
I'm running because of you.
The big gate is going to be here in the front. The wall, I've got masons who've been doing work for me for years and years and years. I want to use old slumstone to keep it original, none of this cinder block and stucco. It's all going to be hedged, lined. And then as far as the aviaries, I mean, they're not going to be in little cages. They're going to be in gigantic 12-foot enclosures. There'll be a lot of different places, but they'll be out of the wind. Some of them could be down lower, but yeah, I think it would be nice to have them in different areas throughout. You know, the ones with the valuable birds obviously will have to be close to the house. That is, I think, the greatest thing anyone could possibly leave is some sort of a legacy, and to be able to be instrumental in creating something that would live on and on and on, to me is, I think that's what vacant land is all about.
There was a huge fire back in the late 1900s that burned from actually the ocean through here down to the desert floor and then back through. And when it came back through the second time, it had burned the majority of the seeds that, you know, how the forest regerminates itself, burned most of the seeds. That's why it's just very sparse around the outline area here of pine trees, and it was a dwarf forest, which means there was pinyon pines mostly through here, kind of like which way you guys came through Pinyon is basically what it used to look like here back then. Massive fire. And on the reservation, because we do go and hunt and just, you know, hike out through there, you can actually see some of the stumps that were burned way back when of these trees that used to grow through. And there's a few pinyon pines throughout the reservation, but you could tell that there was a lot more.
Let me start out with Western time. It's linear. It's measurable. I've got a dinner party at 6:30. I have to be up at 7 for a meeting. I only have 20 minutes. That's Western time.
Indian time, it has its sequential components because that's necessary for celestial cycles and all the rest. But there's also an associative power of time. Time swims. And I've never encountered that with any other group of people or even individuals who were not Native American. And I think it's that associative power of time that, whenever the conversation resumes is when it should resume.
I'm more open. Is that all right? It's just more open this way. See, if I'm facing down there, I'm turning away from you. That's more comfortable for me to do it like this, Rob. The last part of the play, we have one person called Randolph Madison, and he was a Southern aristocrat. The editor says, "This is wonderful, Madison. This is the last great Indian battle." He said, "Now what would you like to do?" And he said, "What would I like to do? I'd like to go out in the desert and join my red brothers and take a rifle and put a bullet through my head. But we've won. We've won, Madison, we've won." Madison says, "The thing a Yankee will never understand is the bitter taste of defeat. We were beaten, but we were not disenfranchised. We became American citizens. That will never happen to the Indian. He's a stranger in his own land. But I respect him, and I will never, never be proud of what we've done to him." That's the end of the play.
There's a theory that we all go back to a place where we were happy when we were little kids, when we were babies. And often it's a resort town. And a lot of people kind of migrate that way as they get older. Personally, I think I'm 10 years too early, but I'm not in a huge rush to split.
the other part of the wash, and this is the dead golf course. I guess they're trying to revive it. Over there, way over there, yeah, there's one hole. We used to hang out in the trees up there, and we used to go onto the other dead golf course and we'd hang out there. All throughout this way is dead. Nobody plays here anymore. They told me this was like more live,